What's up? Welcome to another episode of Wassup Conversations, a podcast with inspiring storytellers in video game, film, and music industry. In this episode, I had the honor of talking to Brandon Campbell, the co-composer of Amazon's New World, a fantastic MMO with great music from Ramin, Djawadi, and Brandon. He started his career at Hans Zimmer's Remote Control Productions and been the co-composer of Ramin Djawadi on many great projects such as Westworld, Person of Interest, Game of Thrones, and Gears of War franchise. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, follow, and introduce Wassup Conversations to your friends if you enjoy these conversations. If you would like to help and support us, please go to the link in the description and consider donating to Wassup Conversations. Thank you so much. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to Wassup Conversations, Brandon. It's so good to have you on the podcast. I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot from you because you're a master at your work, and I've been playing New World recently, and I was like, man, I got to invite Brandon to the podcast to learn more from him. Your career is something really special. You've been involved in many projects that I love, and it's getting better and better each time. Thank you for your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here, and I'm glad you're playing New World. Pretty cool.
Yeah, so give us a little background from your childhood, from when you realized you want to make music and your journey up to this moment.
Yeah, I think my story compared to at least a lot of my colleagues that are composers is a little bit different. I grew up in New York, and I played saxophone, alto, and baritone, but I didn't love it, and it wasn't something I was very good at, and I didn't really spend a lot of time in it. It's just something I did because it looked good. Eventually in college applications, and it was something I could do. My parents kind of pushed me into it. But, as I was in middle school and then in high school, I started really getting into classical music and film scores, orchestral music, really just all things orchestral. I just listened to it a lot. And, I played a lot of sports. And so the people I was hanging out with at the time looked at me like I was crazy when they'd see what I was listening to on my CD player. That's how old I am. Our first generation iPod. And it was like, it was like Vivaldi or the Pirates of the Caribbean score or something. And they'd be like, wow. So anyways, I went to college to study economics and play soccer at University of Rochester. And they have this amazing music college there, the Eastman School of Music. They recommend everyone takes a music class there just to learn something about music, because it's such an amazing resource that most kids at university don't have. And so I took music theory, and I just loved it. And so I kind of double majored in music composition as just a hobby for me. It was like a thing I could do when I was stressed or tired or bored, and sit down and write music. And it was a nice creative release for me. And I really enjoyed it. And then it would have been my sophomore or junior year. So at some point, some fluke connection came in, and I was given an opportunity to go intern at Hans Zimmer's studio in Santa Monica, California over winter break. And so I was like, oh my God, yes. I'm a huge Hans Zimmer fan. And the second I walked into Remote Control Productions, I was like, okay, this is what I need to do with my life. Because up until that moment, I was still just, music was enjoyment for me. I was planning on getting into finance or whatever. And the second I walked through those doors, like, this is what I need to do. And that was kind of the beginning of everything.
Wow. What a sudden change.
It was a real sudden change.
So the music is one part of it, but the word of film music is something that you have to understand. Movies too. You have to understand the industry, how it's going to work out, the storytelling. Was that something challenging back then when you started suddenly to become a film composer in remote control?
That was actually the thing that probably came easiest. And I'm sure it's different for every single person that gets into this career path, is that you'll find things that you're just naturally better at, and things that you are a little bit harder, or things you have to spend more time on. The technology stuff and, the synthesis stuff and all that stuff was way over my head when I walked in. But, the first couple times, now we're fast forwarding to when I was working for Ramin, but the first couple times I had, I was doing small arrangements for him, or small cues. It's aesthetically our point of view from the story was always similar. And I think he's got great instincts when it comes to to storytelling. Obviously, he's been pretty successful in his career, and I think that's just come from. I don't know. I think it comes from the fact I've just watched a lot of movies. And also like I don't try to get caught up in what I'm trying to do musically. I'm just trying to help tell the story. So it comes from that. But I mean, I've watched a lot of stories and read some books, not enough. But the storytelling aspect I always found came like one of the easier things that came to me out of this career.
So you started at remote control and suddenly you were the assistant for Ramin Djawadi. Is that right?
It's Djawadi. No feel bad. Literally not a single person I've met has gotten his name right the first time, but it's Djawadi. So it's like a silent D and a German W. It's very confusing.
One thing though, I think I'm in the right spot here because his last name is Persian and I'm Persian, and I think they pronounce it Djawadi.
No, it's Djawadi. Yeah, but so what happened with his last name is what his Persian father moved to Germany.
Oh yeah.
He gave it the German spelling so that people would pronounce it correctly. But now,
I get it now. Yeah.
Now no one gets it except for probably like people who speak like are German native speakers, but no one here has ever.
I even got it wrong. I'm so proud. I'm gonna have a perfect pronunciation.
The Persian spelling is different. It's that they changed the spelling so it'd be pronounced right.
That's crazy. Yeah. So you started to.
I came out. I interned at Remote Control. It was just a kind of. I mean, getting into Hollywood is just a lot of it. Half of I really do strongly believe is timing and luck. Half of the battle in Hollywood. So early on in my career, because they kind of went away for a while, but I had a lot of like quick, lucky breaks. I showed up at Remote. They asked me to come back that summer. I came back that summer. They offered me, a paid position basically as a studio runner for Remote Control as soon as I graduate. So I graduate, I get in my car, drive out to California. I'm there for like 3 weeks. And the studio manager at the time calls me into her office. And she's like, "You want to work for, you're interested in film composing, right? Because there's some people that go there that want to be audio engineers." And it's like, yes. So is there anyone here that you wouldn't want to work for? And deep down in my mind, there were a couple people there I was not super psyched about working for. But I was like, I'd gladly work for, whoever. I mean, like, I'm all in. And so she's like, "This composer Ramin's looking for a new tech assistant. They want to interview you." I was like, perfect. This is one of the people that like I actually liked and had a good reputation around the studio. And so I interviewed with him and I started working as his tech assistant.
Wow. So as an assistant, what are the duties of an assistant, and what tips do you have for the newcomers who wants to be an assistant for a professional composer?
Sure. So what was the first part of that question? What did I do as an assistant?
Yeah, as an assistant, what are the duties of an assistant?
Yeah, it's kind of like you end up wearing, and it's different for each composer. You kind of end up wearing like 25 different hats, and then some composers want you to be focused very specifically on like just the technical things. So when I was Ramin's tech assistant, I was obviously taking care of like his rig, like my second day, like his sound machine broke down. I'd never built a computer before, so that was fun. You're printing stems for orchestra. You're printing audio to go to the mix. You're sending stems out to like the dub stage for TV shows. You're importing new picture in the evening when we get new turnovers of picture. I was kind of like, that's like the big tech aspect of it. There was some admin stuff, keeping calendars, answering phones, kind of making sure Ramin was on track. If he would kind of, you'd so focus on writing and be like, "Hey, don't forget, like you need to send this out by the end of the day," type of thing. There's a very, very, very few personal assistant type things. And then as time went on, more and more creative things where it's like, the first creative thing was like, I need some sound design. Here's some loops we created for this video game. It was, someone kind of just riffing on an open violin string or a percussionist playing a hand drum. And it's like, let's make some really cool loops from this. So you'd kind of like start producing and mangling and distorting and reversing and stretching and doing all these different things to get, these interesting sounding loops, which were originally pretty basic raw audio, which led to some arranging, which then led to some writing small scenes on some TV shows and video games. And then at some point is when I transitioned into a writing assistant. But my advice to anyone that wants to become like either foot in the door with a composer, it's hard because every composer is looking for something else. Like, and it depends on where you are at your career. So, Ramin at that time was just looking for a general tech assistant, and he didn't expect them to know a whole lot because I didn't know a whole lot. And when Ramin started, he didn't know a whole lot. And some people like James Newton Howard might want someone to come in and just like, I need to completely redo my entire, like I need 3 mirror rigs. I need you to build them today. But, and if you don't know it, you don't know it. That's fine. But what everyone really wants is someone that's like hardworking, easy to get along with, and a quick learner. I mean, every assistant that I've hired, I just look for someone that like, there's no way, especially 15 years ago, when you walked in there and the technology, like the consumer technology hadn't caught up with what was going on at Remote Control Productions with Hans's, custom libraries and everything. There's no way you could have learned that anywhere else in there. Exactly. You just wanted someone to come in and be able to work hard and just get it. Like, I show you once or twice, and then I don't have to worry about showing you again. So, be yourself and just come across as, eager and excited, and, nothing's beneath you. And it's because there's plenty of grunt work and gopher work when I first started. But I found kind of joy in doing all of it. I was helping making movies. And so I didn't care that I was running out and getting coffees as an intern or taking out garbage. It was like, I was just happy to be there. And I think that's one of the reasons I had success early on at Remote Control, is that I think people knew I was just happy to be there.
Exactly. So there's no rule book like to read it like you become an assistant. You just have to be open to everything.
There's zero rule book. And if you go to Remote Control, because that's where I know the most composers, obviously, but you can ask any composer, how did you start and end up to where you are today? No one's story is the same. Yeah, and you'll never be able to follow someone's trajectory. It's not like, I would have loved to have because I started writing for a TV show, and it's like, at 25, I want to score my first feature film. And then at 30, I want to have like this many projects under my belt, because Ramin did it that way. And it's like, well, that's not the way it's going to work for me. Right. I want Hans to like hear my music and just like throw me into a project or pull me in like Dominic Lewis or like John Powell and that's not how it worked for me. And that's not how it's going to work for whoever you are. It's just everyone's journey is a completely different thing, and it happens very organically, and there's a lot of growing pains, but it happens.
Yeah. So you've been working collaboratively with Ramin for quite some time right now. What's the best way for two composers to collaborate?
That's a good question. I guess it just depends on, well, obviously it depends on what your relationship is with them, what your role in the project is. The way I collaborate with Ramin when we co-score something, it's different than the way I collaborate with Ramin when, I write additional music for him, right? That's because it's I still get a little bit of input, but ultimately, he gets final say, and I'm helping him bring his vision together to life. But when we're co-scoring or something, it's funny. We've done like 3 of these things now. They've been different every time. It's sometimes like, maybe he'll send me a piano sketch and I'll arrange it. Or maybe sometimes we'll sit down together in the room and, kind of just kind of bang out early ideas. Or sometimes I'll start an idea, and send, him a kind of a piano sketch, and he'll do arrangement, and he'll send it back to me, and maybe I'll tweak a couple of things. It's kind of, I don't think we've ever really overthought it. We just kind of try and have fun making music.
Yeah. So it's exactly like being an assistant. You just have to figure it out on the spot. So.
Yeah. I mean, Ramin's obviously at a different stage in his career than me. And, I'm also no huge dummy. I know that like the big draw for our co-scoring projects have been Ramin's name, not mine at this stage of my career. So, and it's never happened, but, for me, everyone would be like, if this really isn't working, I can't be like, well, you know what, we're going to play it for them anyway. If you really put his foot down about something, I kind of have to let it go and and try something else. But luckily, as an additional writer, I've had lots of practice doing that. So
yeah. So how do you deal with the artistic differences when working with another composer or even another director?
Yeah, it's you have to remember that, like, you got to remember the bigger picture. You're helping tell a story, or if you're helping a composer, you're helping the composer tell, help them tell the story. So, every director's got different preferences about whether they like things scored more on the nose, where they like kind of things more subtly done, where they like big bombastic themes, or they like things a little bit, more abstract. And then obviously the project itself influences that a lot, but directors have their own preferences, and same thing with the composer. And so it's like, if I tried this big orchestral thing that I felt worked really great for your fantasy, medieval adventure film, and they're like, I kind of want this to be electronic, you could keep trying to force, orchestral music in front of them, but eventually they're going to just let you go. You have to find a way to tastefully do it in the way that they want it done, because they are the shot callers. So
yeah, true. So let's talk about New World. How did this project happen, and what was your strategy for scoring this massive world?
Yeah, it started a long time ago, actually. Patrick Gilmore reached out to Ramin and myself about, he kind of explained this game he was working on for Amazon Studios, their first big, video game and MMO, and asked us if we were interested. And he kind of explained what the entire idea was, and we were like, this sounds really cool. And so early on, there was no like gameplay or video. I mean, this was like years and years ago. They hadn't started like rendering levels together. So we kind of just took their descriptions about what they wanted this game to be, and some of the concept art of the different areas in New World, and anything that they had, really, we took. They had early weapons renderings and sketches of what some of the creatures might look like, and what the costumes might be for like the player characters and stuff. And we took it all, and we just kind of started writing, and that was the nice thing about that was a good example of like collaborating, where it was really nice, because here you are in this big wide open world where the possibilities really were kind of endless. And so you had someone to like bounce ideas off and be like, well, what if we tried this to be, once we tried this to be, what would we try and do it this way? And it's like, well, let's try something a little bit more outside the box. Or what if we try and not use the orchestra as much? Or so we try and, feature, like vocals or whatever it is, whatever the ideas were they're bouncing off. And we just started compiling together melodies and tracks, and we put them in front of Amazon, and they kind of guided us and tell us like, okay, this really works. This is exciting. This sounds adventurous. This sounds kind of worldly. That was kind of a big thing. It's this big fictional land that's also supernatural. And so we really wanted to be inclusive of like all music. So we tried instruments from all over the world, and styles from all over the world. And they came together that way. It was slower than that, but it came together that way. Yeah.
How long did it take?
Video games, the schedule's much more drawn out than film. So it's not like every day we work on this. It was like, can you guys write us like 50 minutes of theme music right now? We just want the main theme for New World, and maybe like an adventure theme, and then like a variation of the main theme that's like pretty low key. And it's like, okay. So we'd spend like, a couple weeks, a month doing that. They give us some revisions. We fix it all up. And then, weeks or a month might go by until they're like, okay, we have our first like characters that we want music for. We have like these, this faction or these creatures that live in the forest, and they need a sound. Can you write us like a mystical forest kind of combat thing, and a mystical forest kind of exploration thing? And that kind of just went on. But we'd been on that game for 4 years, I think.
Oh, wow. That's great. So I'm very fascinated by the ambient music in New World. A lot of times what's selling this fantasy and this full of exploration world is the music. And I know that it's a challenge, because at the times there are no specific story or a character for you to kind of reflect on. How did you achieve this sense of curiosity and the storytelling in a non-linear medium and world?
Yeah, it was hard. It's I've worked on other video games before, and none of them were like this, where like you nailed it. There is no it's non-linear. There's no, there's no narrative. And so we tried, first and foremost, we tried to create, the theme that was kind of exciting and got you excited. That's, you wanted something that sounded, as soon as you heard it, like, okay, New World, but that was exciting and sounded, like semi-adventurous and got people excited to go out, log into the game, explore, run around. That was just kind of like, that was rousing. But then, everything else is like, we had to capture either the essence of what of where you are in the game and the map. So like I said, like you might be in some kind of mystical, or even nefarious forest or something. And you need, then an action happens. So you might need combat music that takes place in this region. And we need a sound for this region and then different like actions that happen there. So there might be tension as you're kind of sneaking around like at dusk, or there might be combat as you're fighting animals or other players, or it might be kind of a little bit more horrific if all of a sudden like it turns to nightfall and like some of the supernatural elements start coming out. And that was kind of it. There were a couple. There's obviously themes that come back, like the corrupted and the main theme and the ancients and everything that get then arranged, big, small, fast, slow, action, somber. But most of it was like trying to figure out how can we enhance the player's senses for what they should be feeling in these certain areas, levels, while they're doing certain tasks.
Yeah, and it's funny that when I was playing, I was kind of focusing on how music is kind of changing the world in this game. And there are times like when I'm hearing something and it's like, okay, this music is about this moment for my character in this area. But sometimes they're like, all right, this music is kind of reflecting on the vastness of this world, that these huge amount of players are also playing this world. There are a lot of fantasy going on. And I was kind of imagining that if the music wasn't there, it wouldn't be that kind of, that feeling wouldn't be there. And that's something that the composer is doing. And also how it was implemented in the game, which area the audio team chose to kind of like, okay, this music is good for this part, this music is gonna kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So they explained this to us, they like the big moments, and they, like I said, we wanted this kind of adventure music, or this music that makes you feel like the awe or space or size or how like grand this world is. And then you have these moments, but then we had an amazing audio team and an amazing audio director, a guy named Jed, who took all this music and implemented this, because the times I've seen people play, and stuff, things just transitioned. Also, it seems to me things transition so seamlessly that you go from like these like moments that you're focused on just the player to then like these more global tracks, or when you move into a new region. I was like, it's pretty incredible. And the other amazing thing they did is, we wrote a lot of music for this. I don't know, maybe 300 minutes or something, but he took all of that music and like stretched it out to be like triple that or something, where he would just take the orchestra or the solo instruments and play that for something that we wrote as like a fast action pace. You take like the long notes from the orchestra, and all of a sudden it was quite lyrical and like beauty. There was a lot of beauty that came from it. I was like, that's really cool. So they really got like a lot of mileage out of the music we had. Also, it's really impressive.
So if you play the game, you're gonna hear some music that's going, oh, did I make this? Sounds so unique.
That's how I answered that question, because I was listening to it, I was like, I don't even remember this. I'm like, oh my God, that's just the like, that's just like the tonal percussion, like the rhythmic, like the tonal percussion and like rhythm section from this one track. They muted all the melody and they muted all the actual like non-tonal percussion. Like, that's really quite nice.
Yeah.
It works really well.
Are you a gamer, Brandon?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't play enough. I play video games, but I don't know if I play enough video games to call myself a gamer.
Do you play New World, this new game? I don't know if you heard about it.
Oh yeah. I think I've heard of it. I heard it's quite good. I've played a little bit. So, full disclaimer: until New World, I'd never played an MMO game in my entire life. So the first time I've ever logged in,
very demanding. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's just like, and you run across, and the thing is, I just don't play video games every day. And like, there's some people you could tell that play, like they log on for an hour or two every evening. And then there's some people I'm like, you play like 10 hours, like you play like 10 hours a day every day. I mean, that's a lot of video games. It's impressive.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about your favorites. What are your favorite soft synths?
My favorite soft synths, I guess, like everything, it kind of, things come and go. Where
what's your go-to? Like you hear a sound, like, all right, let's lay it down, and you open up that synth.
Yeah, it's like I said, I get really excited about things I've had for a long time, and it comes back. So I'm always using Zebra. I'm always using Omnisphere. I'm always using Contact and all the very standard stuff, and the Arturia collection. But sometimes it might be like a year have gone by, and I'm like looking for like a sound, and all of a sudden I remember, I have Diva, and I start looking through Diva, and I'm like, oh man, this is cool. And then I get hooked on Diva for like 2 months, and it's all over a score because this one sound I found, and I start looking for other sounds in Diva, and then that project ends, and then I kind of it kind of like goes away for like a while. Then I remember, oh yeah, I have Diva again. Like let's go look in there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel about everything. Obviously, like I said, I use a lot of Zebra and Atmosphere and stuff like that. But it's like I rediscover these things I've had for a long time, like Absinthe or Massive, and I forget how useful and cool they are. And then I kind of finish a project of, okay, I've done that. Let's see what else there is, and I go find something else, and I come back to it. So I don't have like a favorite. I mean, I don't have a favorite.
Yeah, it's interesting that when you change your instrument, it kind of changes the outcome too. I sometimes try to purposely to try something, work with some new tools in order to kind of make me more creative regarding that music, and it kind of works.
Totally. Yeah, I did a film where I was like, I don't even want to use soft synths at all, and so everything I used was like my hardware synths. Wow. And I was mostly successful. A couple times I had to start preset diving in soft synths to find something, but I was able to do almost the entire project on just hardware, which was great.
You also work in Cubase, right?
Yeah, I work in Cubase.
But Ramin is working with in Logic, right?
Yeah, I was in Logic, obviously, when I worked for Ramin. I went off on my own.
You went rogue.
I went rogue. Yeah, you know what it was?
Actually, Ramin is went rogue, because everyone at Remote, I guess, is working with Cubase.
Well, not everyone. I think there's a couple people that are holding out strong. I think Henry Jackman's still on Logic, and Jimmy Levine. I think Jimmy Levine's in Logic, and so there's Dave Fleming. I think is in Logic. So there's people still in Logic. It's just when I went off my own, I can't remember when this was, 7 years ago, maybe, or 6 years ago. I all of a sudden had to buy all this equipment, and the trash cans had already been out for 4 years. So they were 4 years old, and they were still ungodly expensive. And I was just like, nah. And I was like, I'm just going to build these monster PCs, switch to Cubase. There's a ton of Cubase and PC supported Remote, obviously, because Hans is on it. So, and he's got tech wizards there. And so, and his tech assistant, Chuck Choi, has always been a huge help to me. So every time I knew if I got stuck, I could just be like, Chuck, help me. And he'd come and help me. So it was a big switch, but I'm on Cubase now, and I've never looked back.
Yeah. So, what are your favorite movie scores?
That is such a hard question. I think same thing. Like in all music, I go through these cycles where I rediscover Back to the Future, which is a bad example because I've always loved Back to the Future. That might be one of my favorite film scores, but I'll rediscover a film score. I'm like, man, that's cool. And I'll listen to it a bunch, and then I'll find something else. And so to answer your question, I don't know. And on top of that, I don't even know how exciting my answers are. They're really not that cool. There are going to be a lot of stuff that it's everyone's favorite. It's going to be Back to the Future and E.T. I love the early Harry Potter scores, the John Williams Harry Potter scores. I think they're just unreal. I love Hans's Gladiator scores. The first couple Pirate scores I found amazing. The Magnificent Seven score, the original. I love the theme from Lawrence of Arabia.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, I don't have like one that I listen to. I'm like, this is the film score. It's always like, and then every year someone does something, and I'm like, that's really cool. And it's too new for me to realize that this is going to be one of those great timeless pieces of music. But there's so much great stuff coming out today. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the last movie that you watched and you were inspired by the music in it? Like, man, you nailed it.
That is a good question also. This isn't the last movie because this is an old movie. This is an older movie. So it's definitely not the last movie that I saw and I was like, the music's just out of this planet, amazing. But everything about this movie, I remember when I watched this movie, I was like, this is peak filmmaking. Like, I don't know, like the story, the directing, the acting, the writing, the score, everything just seemed to line up in a way that I haven't seen a movie like this in a long time. And that was Slumdog Millionaire. I was like, this is just amazing filmmaking and music.
What was the name of the movie?
Oh, Slumdog Millionaire.
Oh, Slumdog Millionaire. Yeah.
And I know that's like,
that
what's the last awesome piece of music you you heard? And I named something 13 years old, but and it's not the last obviously piece of music I heard that was amazing. But everything about that movie is just amazing.
Yeah, I know. The vibe was amazing. I just, before this interview, I just watched Halloween Kills, John Carpenter. And it's
the new one, the one that just came out?
Yeah, the new one. Yeah.
Good?
Yeah, it's kind of good. Yeah. The last one was better, but it still kicks ass. Yeah. And the music.
I saw the last one in theaters whenever that was, like 2018.
Yeah.
And it was, I got goosebumps when all of a sudden you hear those Halloween sounds and you hear the theme come in.
Yeah. The theme is amazing in this one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So, what are you listening when you're not composing?
I am all over the place with it. I'm all over the place where I'll go through big like classical periods where I'll always listen to like the classical station, and that's all I'll listen to, or like I'll have a playlist where I listen to my favorite like stuff in the repertoire. And then, I'll go through it. I just go through these phases again, like everything. I love classic rock. I love the hip hop I grew up with. So that's like late 90s, early 2000s hip hop. I still listen to that all the time, mainly when I'm at the gym, but I listen to that. Ironically, that's what I probably listen to most regularly. It's late 90s, early 2000s, mid 90s hip hop. I went through like a big Elvis phase for a while because I didn't discover Elvis until like later in life. So I went through this big Elvis and
what
like
year
Fats
were you
Domino.
born?
What you say?
What year were you born? How old are you?
I was born in 88.
88. Oh, I'm from 91. So kind of close.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I went to this big Elvis and Fats Domino like phase. I love the music from New Orleans, like New Orleans, Dixieland, like jazz and stuff. So exactly. I throw that on sometimes. I listen to film scores occasionally. Usually the older stuff. Like I listen, a lot of like, Bernstein, Williams, Silvestri type of things. And, I'm trying to think what else. I never listened to country. I started like listening to some country. That went through like a little country phase and stuff also. So I'm just kind of all over the place. I'm trying to think what I listen to now. It's been a lot of like, I've kind of been back in this like classical like classical wave that a lot of that music.
So do you listen to other countries' music? I mean, I'm Iranian, considering Ramin has an Iranian heritage. Have you ever listened to an Iranian music suggested by Ramin?
Occasionally, we were doing some project and like we just listened to like a lot of the rhythms, a lot of 2 against 3.
Yeah.
I'm also, not that you ever know by looking at me or anything about my name or anything, but my grandmother's from Armenia, and so they'd always be playing like Armenian music when I go to like family reunions and stuff. So yeah, I mean, as part of being a film composer is just always, it's not like I go and like I'd get into my car and I'm like, I'm just going to throw on like traditional Japanese folk music, or today I'm going to listen to like Scandinavian, like, house music or something. But I listen to it from time to time because it's like, as a film composer, you're trying to use all these different sounds, styles, and colors to create something unique or that's different sounding. So definitely listen, like, occasionally we'll go searching through YouTube and do that kind of thing.
Yeah. So your favorite films?
Well, the last amazing film I saw was Dog Millionaire. I'm a huge Back to the Future fan.
Oh yeah. I got it.
And for whatever reason, and I don't know why I feel bad about it, but I have this guilt. I feel like it's a guilty pleasure. It shouldn't be, because it's good. It's a good movie.
It's a masterpiece. Are you kidding me?
Well, Jurassic Park's a movie I could watch that I've watched like 100 times, and I'm still like, it's amazing. That was 94, so we're coming up on 20 years. This it looks better than today's CGI, and all this green screen, blue screen, the entire time CGI, like in your face. I'd rather like those old school, like, these old school movies like that. And then I love all those early Spielberg stuff, like E.T. I love, and Jaws, obviously I love. That's a good question. And I know I should have, I feel like I knew you were going to ask this, and I've been asked before, and I'm never able, because I'm going to get off the phone and I'm like, oh yeah, like that's I love that movie. And it always takes me a minute to figure it out. But yeah, it's not like, I love Shawshank Redemption.
Oh yeah.
I don't watch it too often because it's a lot. But it's another movie that I love. And I'm very guilty of, and I have some friends that are older than me I've watched a lot of them that are like, you have to watch these amazing movies that were made before you were born.
Yeah.
And I've watched a lot of them. I make it sound like I never watched it, but all my favorite movies, I think it's because it rouses a sense of like nostalgia in me, that like these movies that like literally like showed me the wonder of like filmmaking in Hollywood. And it's really what led me to who I am today and what I do. It's something about watching these movies then they're good movies that bring back this sense of like amazement and wonder that I experienced in my childhood. I still love today.
Yeah. The other day I was reading something that it was saying that if you're listening to nostalgic music or watching a nostalgic movie, it's saying that your mind is getting old, but you have to kind of fight against it. Do not go always to nostalgia. Try out new things.
I believe that's completely true, yeah. and I'm so bad at that. Yeah. I believe that's absolutely true. And I love nostalgic moments. It's like I listen to nostalgic music. I like nostalgic shows. It's just I should force myself to get out of it, but it's just something I don't know that I love.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Brandon. Your music is truly inspiring, whether if I like it or have been given to me as a temp music. Your character.
That's cool. Oh yeah, it was, when you said it was it Letter for the King music?
Yeah. It was from your website. And it was
cool.
It was actually the first time I was introduced to your music, and I was like, okay, let's check out his other music, his interviews, and there's this amazing interview with you with Output. I guess it was with in your studio with Output, and it was awesome.
Oh, it would have been with I know what you're talking about. And I would never just describe ever any of my interviews as amazing. I just kind of ramble on and mumble a lot.
And that was
but
great.
It was with Orchestral Tools.
Oh yeah, it was with Orchestral Tools. Yeah, these two channels have their different interviews. Yeah, Output. Orchestral Tools. Yeah. That was great. Go check it out. So, thank you so much. Your career is always inspiring. Your character is inspiring, and I enjoyed a lot and learned a lot from you in this interview.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks so much for having me on. This was a lot of fun.